Welcome back inside the Horseshoe, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as Tim says on his show, for a rapid reaction presented by Byers Auto, driven by Byers Auto for that matter. That's the 40-year vet, Tim May. I'm Spencer Holbrook, and let's break down Ohio State 49, Rutgers 10, with a little bit of a feisty twist at the end, Tim, shall we?
Yeah. I think Ryan, I don't think Ryan Day got upset. He doesn't get upset at stuff like this, but my first question, I got to ask the first question tonight, and it was about he and Shiano going at each other on the sideline there after Jesse Mirko just took off in Australian rules football fashion and ran the ball because there was nobody in front of him. I don't know if I'd call that a fake punt. It's just like he took off running. But Aaron Cruikshank came over and popped him out of bounds. And, of course, a flag flew. And then some, I don't know, jostling. It was more like jostling than it was a fight, or melee.
Jawing.
Yeah, jawing. And of course, Ryan Day's trying to restore order there, defending his people. And then next thing you look up, and Greg Schiano has run 48, 50 yards across the field. I'm not sure he ever got to the full 53 and a third, but he's come across the field, and they're face to face, and they're pointing fingers at each other and stuff. Of course, at the end, after the thing is over, they met at midfield, and I think Greg Schiano left by patting him on the back. And
he still didn't look too pleased.
No, but I mean, it is what it is. It's football, number one. They didn't throw the ball. Jesse Mirko took off running. Yep. They didn't end up scoring afterwards. And then number two, Rutgers gets a great gift when Emeka Egbuka can't handle that first punt of the game, and they turn it into a touchdown. They have a 7-0 lead, and what did Rutgers do? Rutgers tried an onside kick.
Yeah.
They're leading, and they tried an onside kick, Spencer. What's up with that? So, and it was not a very well executed one. The point is, stuff happens in a football game. Guys do certain things, and I had no problem with Jesse Mirko running because, like I said, he finally got to stretch his legs out like an Australian rules football star that he was at one point.
Well, and Tim, Rutgers was a alignment.
Oi! Excuse me.
Rutgers was a alignment disaster tonight. They had 4 or 5 offside penalties. I think they had 2 on kickoffs, a couple on just lining up in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
Illegal shifts, illegal formations. It was a disaster for the Scarlet Knights in many facets tonight. Mayan Williams almost outgained Rutgers on his own. We cannot say enough about Mayan Williams, and we're definitely going to get into that.
Yes.
But Greg Schiano has more reasons to be mad than Ryan Day having his punter go out there and the punter on his own accord faking a punt. Simply put, Greg Schiano got his kick tonight, and so. There's
You're
plenty,
tough on those opposing coaches, man. I've noticed that.
There's plenty of reason for him to be mad, so it's not just but I want to clear the air because it's not just the fake punt that I'm sure Greg Schiano's mad about.
Yeah.
And so, the fake punt is one thing, and it wasn't a fake punt really. It was just Jesse Mirko, again, going on his own and doing his thing. But, I don't think that's the only reason Greg Schiano looked displeased in that post-game handshake that I did to get a photo of. I raced out there at midfield and got one. So if you haven't,
I got almost there. I'm 68. You're 28.
I'm 25. I'm going on 26 here. But anyways, Tim, let's get past the fracas, the little bit of rabble rousing there on the sideline, and get into the reason we're standing on the 5-yard line. It has nothing really of semblance other than 5 Mayan Williams touchdowns.
Yes.
He was absolutely spectacular, Tim. Whether it was turning 1 yard into 3 into 9, one run into 70-yard touchdown. You can't say enough about him, and his performance tonight in the absence of Travion Henderson was a sight to behold.
Yeah, and to think, that he was like that late addition to that recruiting class several years ago that Tony Alford believed in,
That a lot of people didn't.
And really, he has been the bell cow for this offense in the running game through the first 5 games. They're 5-0. He's been the guy who's always answered the bell, pardon that pun, and delivered. I mean, Travion Henderson was ruled out after not really coming up to speed in pre-game warm-ups. That was no ruse run by the coaching staff, et cetera, based on what Ryan Day told us. And all Mayan Williams did was when he said go in there, he went in there and ran as hard as he could.
Yep.
And the big payoff, of course, was that big long touchdown run where just the defense opened, thanks to Luke Whippler and everybody else on that front line, opened like the bell on the trumpet, and he just ran straight up the middle for a touchdown, which is the real payoff on a game like this. But 191 yards rushing on 19 carries, 5 touchdowns, ties Keith Byers and Pete Johnson. Keith Byers against Illinois on this very field in 1984 5 touchdowns, and then Pete Johnson, I think it was 1974, I think against North Carolina, and he had 5 touchdowns. But to put yourself in the record book, you're tied for the most rushing touchdowns in a single game in Ohio State history. That's I don't care who you're playing. That's a phenomenal achievement. And Mayan Williams, of course, is about as humble as it gets when we're talking to him, and just pretty much just has clipped quotes, let's just put it that way, when it comes to asking him things. But he felt really good about his performance, and so did the team. I was talking to Kevin Wilson after the game too, the offensive coordinator tight ends coach, and just having that guy, man, a selfless dude who'll go in there and just get the work done.
Yep.
It means a lot. You look at the Cleveland Browns with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Seems like that little connection has lost a little bit of its love, for want of another term, with Kareem Hunt wanting to get out of there at one point in preseason. But the bottom line is, it's so valuable to have 2 running backs who can carry the mail. And of course, Dallin Hayden coming on big. But yes, very, very impressed by Mayan Williams, not just tonight, but over the course of the last several games.
Yeah, Tim, and when you put it this way, the way I'm about to put it.
By the way, his third career start. First 2 were against Minnesota and Oregon last year.
Yeah, and then Travion Henderson took over that role in the game against Tulsa, where he put himself in the record book for a freshman at Ohio State with 274 rushing yards last year on this turf. Well, on the replaced turf now, I guess.
You don't have to be that literal. People know what you mean.
Yeah, on this very field.
Yeah.
So now you've got 2 running backs in this stable, Tim. Both of them are in the Ohio State record books for different reasons, and both of them can get the job done. Mayan Williams has been the better of the 2 backs this season through 5 games, but also I think Travion Henderson's dealing with a little bit of an injury that's keeping him sidelined. Not really sure on the specifics there. We'll try to get into that a little bit more at Lettermen Row this week. But obviously the story of the night is Mayan Williams with those 5 rushing touchdowns, and then a defense that, I talked about it, Tim, and I'm not going to give the defense too much love, because I was the one on the Bold Predictions video and in the practice report to talk about just how bad this Rutgers offense is. But at the same time, when you execute the way this defense did, and you're in your gaps in a 42-10 game, and you're still flying off the ball on a 35-10 game when everyone knows that this game is already way in hand, and you keep the discipline to help Steel Chambers get that interception at the end, this defense is doing everything that a good defense does. It takes care of business in the first half, and it keeps teams down in the second half. There are too many times, even last year, 2 years ago, Ohio State would get a lead, and then you would just see the defense kind of start to give up a little bit or let up a little bit. This defense doesn't do that. And I think that's where I'm most impressed in holding Rutgers under 200 yards is the trick plays didn't phase this team, and the throwback, I think, in the first quarter only got 6 yards, and that was about it. And the willingness to continue to go at it, and I don't want to steal Greg Schiano's term, but to keep chopping away on defense when you know that you've already won the game.
Yeah, and by the way, of course I gave you all kinds of grief in the press box, because just when you made your bold prediction about a shutout, I go, so many things can happen that ruin that kind of prediction, and it can happen earlier or later. All of a sudden it's 7-0 Rutgers. This was a come from behind victory by Ohio State. As our friend Tony Gerdeman and I were joking in the press box, all of a sudden, it's a big lead at halftime, and the homecoming crowd turned into a home-going crowd, as the second half progressed big time. But back to your thing, that was an example of the win. The win was, even when C.J. Stroud said it was no factor with him throwing the ball, I kind of believe that, but I watched it be a factor on that punt when Emeka Egbuka got surprised by the ball going maybe a little bit farther than he thought, and he fumbles it. So boom, that puts your shutout prediction in jeopardy, because they get the ball on the 18 or 20 yard line, whatever it was. Yeah. And then of course they executed a really good pass play and got the touchdown. But the bottom line was, they didn't really come close to another touchdown the way I figured it. They kicked the field goal, but this defense did exactly what I think you were talking about in that bold prediction segment, about just taking this game by the throat and hanging on to it. And that's exactly what this defense did. And a while ago, when we were talking about Mayan Williams, I think Rutgers has a really nice defensive front. I think they play really sound defense for the most part. I thought they had a good plan against Ohio State for the most part. But they came in giving up only 55-yard average on the ground. Mayan Williams ran for 191. Ohio State ran for 250-something. When you can get 250 yards plus on the ground, still in college football, you're having a hell of a day.
Yep.
The offensive line's having a hell of a day, and your running backs are running hard, and that's exactly what Miyan Williams and Dallin Hayden did. So that's where the kudos really go.
Yeah, Tim, and I was going to stick over on the defensive side for Ohio State, but now that you mention it, another thing that I've just noticed throughout these first 5 games is even when it should have looked easy for this Ohio State offensive line a year ago, sometimes they would just make it look a little more difficult than it needed to be. This offensive line right now is mashing folks. It is getting the job done, and not just getting the job done and being, okay, that's another win. The offensive line did what it needed to do. They're not just doing what they need to do. They're doing what they want to do. They're doing whatever they want to do. And, I talked to Paris Johnson just a little bit over by the fence as he's walking out. And I said, you're just throwing guys around. I mean, because they are. I mean, Paris Johnson, I think, had a pancake on a passing play that had no reason to give him a pancake, but he got one there because they're just doing whatever they want to opposing defenses. And like you said, Rutgers doesn't have a terrible defensive front. The Michigan State front isn't bad. But I also think that right now, the way this Ohio State offensive line is playing, there's not a front on this schedule that it can't handle. And that's saying something for a unit that really, really did struggle when you look back on last year. It did struggle. And so I'm going to tip my cap to Justin Fry and those starting 5 up front because right now they're moving people. And they're not having much resistance because of the high level that they're playing.
Post game, CJ Stroud, you get one question, right? And I tried to ask 3 in one question, and whatever. But my bold prediction was Marvin Harrison Jr. would catch at least 3 touchdown passes again tonight. To match his other 2 games, he's caught 3 touchdown passes in, and of course that kind of went over CJ's head a little bit. But the point was there were some opportunities there in the passing game that just didn't happen for one reason or another, sometimes because of pass interference, etc. But my favorite memory of this game, besides Greg Schiano and Ryan Day going at it,
pointing at each other.
You're supposed to pick up on that more quickly. Was when they got down here at the goal line, and it looked like Rutgers was going to hold them out, and it was like that last 30 seconds in a basketball game where the one team takes the court and the defense calls timeout, and then one team takes the court and then the offense calls timeout. It was crazy. And then finally, after getting stuffed a couple of plays, they run Mayan Williams right off the right end there between Cade Stover and I think it was Mitch Ross. He just created a hole, and it looked so easy.
Could have saved us about 15
minutes. And that's
what
gets me about this offense, man. They have some trouble, and then all of a sudden they just have a play that looks so easy because obviously Rutgers is dropping back in a 2-deep zone. They're saying, you're not going to throw over us tonight. C.J. Stroud found that out the hard way on the first play of the second half.
Yes.
The way those guys reacted to that pass. But boom, what does Ohio State do to get that first real big gain that really mattered? Emeka Egbuka right underneath that.
Yep.
And C.J. Stroud hits a guy in stride about as well as anybody in college football. This team has so many ways of solving the puzzle. And like Julian Fleming said, they're going to be even more explosive when Jackson Smith and Jigba returns. Because we're talking to Julian after the game too, and he's just pretty nonplussed about his performance. But the last 3 games have just been, wow, the coming out party for Julian Fleming in major college football, based on the injuries, et cetera, he dealt with over the last several years. And you can just see, man. I mean, because this was a decent defense they played against tonight. The world's greatest? No. But a very disciplined, fairly sound defense, and well coached, of course. That falls in line with what I'm describing it as. And they scored 49 on them.
Yeah, and didn't really have trouble. It looked a little clunky in that 49 as well.
Isn't it funny though? I mean, that's 49-10 is a butt kicking.
Oh yeah,
is a butt kicking. But we're sitting here, and I'm not just me and you.
It just seemed like a little bit was off there, though.
I know.
It just seems weird.
I know, but nothing was going to come the real easy way against that defense until you really kind of like opened it up, and then boom, all of a sudden, Mayan Williams, runs half the field for a touchdown.
Leaves
and
everyone else in ruins, right?
Yeah, well, I call it the Mayan ruins whenever he leaves people behind him.
So, Tim, let's turn the page on the offense. Let's talk defense again. A lot of injuries starting to pile up for this defense. You've got Denzel Burke still nursing the hand injury that you've reported extensively on, but he gave it a go. Still has those struggles in the back end right now. I think that's a confidence issue for Denzel Burke. I know the skill is there. We've seen it for a long time now, an entire year's worth of sample size. He's not a bad player at all. I
No.
just think it's a confidence issue. Then you go to Cameron Martinez was out of this game. The guy in front of Cameron Martinez, Tanner McAllister, exited the game.
Yeah.
I saw Tyleik
You know,
Williams.
he's been dealing with like basically a groin muscle strain, the way we understood.
Yeah.
Remember, he had to miss a game a couple of weeks ago. He and Josh Proctor at the same time, and clearly that looked like something that was bugging him when he had to stay on the field there and stuff. But you're right. Go ahead.
And then you couple that, like I said, Cameron Martinez missed the game. I don't think that's a long-term thing.
Yeah.
But then we saw Tyleik Williams, who went down, but almost looked a little non-contact to me. I don't want to speculate at all. But
He was back on the sideline.
He was chasing after the quarterback, and he tried to make a cut, and then he grabbed his leg. It didn't look good at the time at all, especially on 310, 320 pounds. It never looks good when they're grabbing the leg.
But like I said, he came back and he was on the sideline. Yeah, he went into the tent.
He was on the sideline in his jersey. I'll definitely have to report on that and get up to speed there. The defensive injuries, though, Tim. Tyler Friday didn't play. He's a captain.
Yeah.
They're just Cameron Brown obviously missed the game. I keep remembering more because they just keep piling up. And it seems like no matter what this defense does and who's out there on the field right now, things are happening for them and they're playing well. And that's one of the things that I was trying to give them credit for a little earlier in this video is no matter who's out there, they're in the right spot. Like Cody Simon's the third linebacker on the field. It never looked like he was out of position. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is probably the third or fourth defensive end now. He was not out of position. And, bad offense or good offense, if you're playing disciplined, sound, smart football on the defensive side, the success is going to be there. They played a long time without creating turnovers, and Zach Harrison pokes one loose because he's in the right place where he should be. Zach Harrison gets a tipped pass, and Steel Chambers is where he should be in the zone, and so he picks off a pass. They're always in the right spots right now, and that's a credit not only to the players who are listening to the coaching, but when we didn't see that at all last year, you see Jim Knowles and the defensive staff getting these guys where they should be, and the results are coming.
Yeah. Zach Harrison, shook his hand after interviews and stuff. I thought he had a hell of a game.
Yep.
And when you create yourself 2 turnovers, which is what he did, that's huge. I mean, for a defense that I'm not going to say it struggled to create turnovers because they had they stopped Rutgers, for example, tonight 2 times on 4th down.
So
that's a turnover.
4, yeah.
Yeah. But that's a turnover on downs, etc. But I'm telling you what, man. There's a lot of guys that are really playing hard on this defense, but Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg, compared to this time a year ago, not just them personally, but just the way the defense struggled to get linebackers on the field, not getting caught up in the wash and all this kind of stuff, just the expertise they're playing with, the awareness they're playing with, and then when they trigger, Steel Chambers, running guys down to the sideline 3 or 4 times tonight, just showing his speed, etc. And Tommy Eichenberg continuing to put on his clinic that is so much different from a year ago. And then, of course, tonight, Jim Knowles dabbled with, dabbled with 3 linebackers on the field a few times at the same time, a 4-3 look, which is interesting because now, starting with Michigan State on down the road, they're going to have to go, well, wait a minute, why does he have 3 linebackers in there? Yep. There are all these things they put on video tonight, which are interesting, but like you're saying, they're dealing with injuries, and guys are stepping up. Cam Brown, of course, could not go again tonight, one of the starting corners. Yep. J.K. Johnson, I thought, played extremely well tonight from what I saw. Josh Proctor picked up where he left off after the last game last week at safety. Ronnie Hickman has kind of been taken a little bit out of the limelight because now he isn't having to make half the tackles, like he did a year ago when things were coming out of the gate. But I think he played extremely well tonight. And then, Talon Custer, but who are you also seeing coming on and playing a little bit earlier and earlier, partly because of injuries and partly because of the way he's coming on. Sonny Styles is out there. Kai Stokes you got to see out there and flash. So
Caden Curry a little bit.
Yeah, and Caden Curry, boy, what a bogus roughing the passer call that was.
Yeah.
He touched him about like this. You didn't even move. Meanwhile, C.J. Stroud initially gets hit when he's already out of bounds and gets driven into the ground down there and no call. So yeah, I think both head coaches were a little bit testy when they got face to face.
Yeah, and back to one point, if you find me 2 linebackers in the country, a tandem that are playing better right now than Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg, I'll call you a liar. I don't think there's a tandem in the country right now playing better than those 2. I thought maybe for a while the Iowa tandem of Justin Jacobs and Jack Campbell were, but no. See, Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers are special together. And the way they're playing and moving around in this defense, it is special. Now,
Agreed.
Now, to your point, yes, both coaches were a little testy. Back to the original point of this entire show, Ryan Day had a little bit to complain about. He was really giving the official the business there on a few different calls.
Yeah.
And then you've got Greg Schiano, who obviously was a little testy after what happened with that fake punt. But that's just one of the many storylines that comes out of Ohio State 49, Rutgers 10 here inside the Horseshoe on Saturday night. To open October, it's a nice chilly fall night, Tim. Let's get out of here. So for Tim May, the 40-year vet, I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to another Rapid Reaction presented by Byers Auto, driven by Byers Auto. We'll be in East Lansing on Saturday for Ohio State, Michigan State at 4 o'clock up in Spartan Stadium. Until then, there will be plenty of content all week and all year round at LettermenRow.com.